audio check.
Now, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And now, if you're not completely satisfied, a few words from better than ever in your neighborhood. You'll be amazed.
Everything Pharmacy.
Hey guys, and welcome to RX Radio, a podcast about everything pharmacy. On this episode, we find out what pharmacy is like over in the UK. All right, so let's get started. Welcome to the show, Aditya. We are really excited to have you on here. I think that the listeners are going to get some really great value about hearing what pharmacy is like in the UK. So if you can just start by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Richard. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here today. So my name's Aditya, and I'm almost qualified pharmacist. I'm just in that intermediary stage, just waiting to be registered.
Cool.
And I completed a training year in community pharmacy, also known as, in America, more commonly known as retail pharmacy.
Yep.
And I'm going to be working in September in policy and strategy, part of the NHS, so our National Health Service, in their graduate scheme.
Oh, that's awesome. How does it work in terms of how long does it take you to be fully licensed and ready to practice?
Sure. So it takes us 5 years from start to finish, provided there's no hitches along the way. Mm-hmm. So you have 4 years of university study. So and then you need to do 1 year, like a professional placement year, and then at the end of that placement year, you sit an exam. So I started my education in September 2012 at the University of East Anglia in Norwich, and then I studied there for 4 years. I graduated in July 2016, and then started my placement year literally straight after, and then did that until I finished, because I had to do one whole year. But I sat my professional exam at the end of June, and got the result at the end of July. Thankfully, that was all good. And now I'm just waiting to be on the register. So yeah, it's a 5-year process, provided everything goes from start to finish with no hitches.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, ours is a little bit fairly similar, I would say. I mean, we have there's a minimum of 2-year prerequisites that we do. So there's like classes you got to take, like organic chemistry, physics, biology, things like that, and you can actually apply right after you do those 2 years of prerequisites, and then you go to pharmacy school for then 4 years, and we have residencies also where you can like specialize after, if you want to go like into either transplant pharmacy or ER pharmacy, critical care. Do you guys have residencies like that over there in the UK?
Not at that stage. I mean, so the residency that we have here, So just a question: do you have to do residencies to qualify as a pharmacist, or is that something after you've qualified?
No, it's after you've qualified. So we can go straight into retail or community pharmacy right after we graduate, and right after we graduate, we take our boards, like for law, per state, and and then like the national pharmacy boards, and then we're already considered a pharmacist where we can practice. The residency is just extra training. If we want to, continue to practice in a different setting or in a specialized setting.
Yeah. So we do have something similar. It's not in that stage, but so what we have is you do your, say, 5 years. Actually, and one thing to note is we don't have the prerequisite, as you say. Mm-hmm. The thing we have, so our education system is from the ages of 14 to 16, you say there's first level of the GCSE, which is the government level exam.
Yeah.
And then when you're 16 and 17, you do something called A levels. And that is you can say is like your prerequisite, because that is what you do to get into university to study pharmacy. But then, so you don't do your 5 years, but then the residencies, they're more commonly done from people in hospital or general practice pharmacists. I know that's an area we're going to touch on later, and especially in community pharmacy, there are also people who choose to specialize further. So yes, and we have various programs like in Guy's St Thomas, which is a hospital in central London. Mm-hmm. That particular trust of hospitals, I think there's a few hospitals in that trust, if you like. I can't remember the names off the top of my head. They have a program called STEP, which is designed to get pharmacists who, it's usually people who are newly qualified. They apply to get onto this program. It's like an intensive program over, I think, a few years, and that is treated like a residency because they're given much more specialist training across different rotations, so they can choose where they want to go later on. And I think there is an element of we have something called a clinical diploma, and that diploma is used to enhance your clinical understanding and your clinical. Because at the end of the day, in your training year and all that, you can only do so much clinical work.
Yeah.
And then the idea is this clinical diploma will, what's the word? Will grow. Will further your education and expertise. And I suppose with that, you can take that and specialize further.
Yeah.
So, but I'm guessing to specialize, the clinical diploma would be a prerequisite, and then you'd need to do. And there are many hospitals which do fund that clinical diploma.
Cool.
Although that is a decreasing pool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it costs money.
It definitely sounds like it's very similar to what it's like over here in terms of what the residency is like, because you do get a stipend to become a residency at a hospital, because not only you're training, but you're working also as a pharmacist. So eventually, I guess, people do need to get paid at some point.
It all comes down to money in the end.
It always does. It always does. What about prescribing pharmacists? Are they the same, or can you be a prescribing pharmacist within a GP practice? Like how does that play into the whole thing?
So prescribing pharmacist is basically just for clarity's sake, is a pharmacist who has gone through the course and is now able to prescribe. Mm-hmm. So and you got various levels, I think, and that's because the prescribing is based on your level of competence.
Okay.
So so for example, if for example I had specialized in diabetes and I had to see a condition about asthma, then if it's someone about specialist asthma, then that's not really my competence, so I wouldn't be able to help in that.
Gotcha.
I should refer them to the appropriate practitioner.
Gotcha. So when you become a prescribing pharmacist, it's within a certain area. It's within your competence.
It's within your competence.
Okay, cool.
So
you can't just start prescribing anything you want.
Well, I suppose there is some level of general practice, right?
Yeah.
You can, generally pharmacists, when it comes to OTC or minor ailment conditions, you think of it this way: if you've got a pharmacist who can prescribe, and you've got a patient who's come in saying, "I've got, for X, Y, and Z," and that the OTC treatment isn't the best thing, but say something like a POM medicine, so a prescription only medicine is the thing. And the idea is that the pharmacist can make that informed decision and be able to, within their own competence, understand where to level up to prescribe to.
Gotcha.
So in GP practice, that the idea is, I think pharmacists in GP practice would be is taking very well, because that is a setting where prescribing is primarily done. So if you've got a pharmacist there, then ideally they'd be able to prescribe what's needed, if you like. So, and usually the prescribing would be if someone, say, has let's go back to an example, say has asthma, and they're within a certain. So that means the doctor will have laid out in their initial diagnosis, will have laid out an initial pathway and initial management framework.
Gotcha.
And so the pharmacist will be prescribing within that framework. If there's something needed changing more beyond that, they need to be referred back to the doctor.
Gotcha.
So there are, what's the word? There are safeguards along the way, I think.
Yeah.
But then, you got level, if you're a consultant pharmacist, so, a really high level pharmacist within a hospital or a very specialty center. So just saying, for example, a HIV pharmacist who's gone through the prescribing course, who's at that top level of pharmacist.
Yeah.
Then then that level of in this, at least I've heard, consultant pharmacists walk around on the ward with the consultant doctors,
Gotcha.
and they're doing the job together, sort of thing, because of that. So a prescribing pharmacist can prescribe. The doctor said, all right, this is the diagnosis. This is what I think might be the best. What do you think? Oh, I think this. All right, I'll write it up. Sort of.
Yeah, and I think that you and I are probably in agreement with this, that I think the future of pharmacy, especially with the amount of information that's available at our fingertips and the amount of things that physicians have to deal with, that I think it's going to move towards the physician is going to be the ultimate, have the ultimate role in diagnosing and figuring out what is going on with a patient. And then it's then going to move on to the pharmacist's hands to determine, okay, what's going to be the best medication and best treatment for this individual person.
Definitely. I think at the end of the day, the doctor is the doctor is the one who's the executive in the whole chain. So I think there is a lot of talk we have on Twitter is that doctors diagnose pharmacists. What's the word? Choose the medicine.
Yes.
But then the lines blur if you've got a prescribing pharmacist.
Yeah.
Because certain level of pharmacists can diagnose to a point.
Yeah. One thing you said, I'm not sure if anyone else picked up on this, but you said you abbreviated POM for prescription only medication. That's awesome, and I'm going to try to implement that here in the States, because here we only have the abbreviation for over-the-counter medications, OTC. But POM or POM sounds awesome for prescription only meds. I have to tell people all the time, no, it's only with a prescription. It's so long. So if I can just start saying POM, then that's going to be great. It's going to save me some time.
Get the FDA to write that on the boxes, because anything that's a prescription only medicine in this country has the word POM on it in a box, in a teeny box. Well, but it's got the word POM on it.
Ours say RX only. It'll say RX only on the box, indicating that. But that's still, like, if I go to tell a patient that RX only, I don't think they're going to know really what that means. But anyway. So let's talk about technicians. This is another interesting thing I think about the UK that is very different from here in the States. You guys have something called, or you guys are trying, I'm not sure if you to implement it, accuracy technicians, right?
Yeah. So we've had them for a while now.
That's foreign to us. That is extremely foreign to us. Please do tell.
Okay, so we've had them for a while now. So what an accuracy technician is a pharmacy technician who is registered with the regulator. So in our case, the General Pharmaceutical Council, and they are qualified to, I'll use your word, is to verify whether what is on the label is what the doctor had written on the prescription, and to verify that the item that has been picked is the one that is on the prescription. So it's like they're just doing the final operational check that the right medicine has been taken out, the right directions are on the medicine, there are the right number of capsules or tablets, whatever you are. It's basically the medicine supplied is in accordance to what's written on the prescription.
Yeah.
So that is their primary, what I believe is their primary role. Although the role of a pharmacy technician, because that's actually a protected title in the UK, they're doing more. But yeah, that's the role of an accuracy pharmacy technician.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, people, I think, would lose their minds over here if they found out that technicians were going to be moving, towards the verifying prescriptions. But I think that it's going to be a movement that we're going to have to embrace here, because I think we need to get pharmacists more into the clinical role and the clinical check, especially in the community setting. And especially with the advent of what's possibly going to be Amazon's pharmacy coming, I think that we're going to have to one day adopt that and move towards that way too. Because if you think about it, like, look at New York. New York has mandated that all prescriptions be sent electronically, which means not only you don't need special training to match letters. Yes, you want to make sure that you have some sort of training, but you don't need, higher level 4 years of training to just match letters. And that's basically what verifying, prescriptions is. It's just matching letters, which eventually I think a robot or a computer will be doing that. But I think in the meantime, definitely, it'll probably make sense to have a technician doing it, and let free up the time for the pharmacist to worry more about, helping patients with providing better care.
Oh, definitely. And it's you're right. And I think it's interesting you said that about New York, that they want all prescriptions go paperless, because there's also a drive in the UK by politicians to get the NHS paperless by 2020.
Wow.
And part of the one way to doing it is we have a huge push for electronic prescriptions. How big can I say? Nationwide.
Mm-hmm.
And I think over 50% of all the prescriptions in the NHS are now paperless, are electronic. Wow. They're not actually paper copies anymore.
Yeah.
So
go ahead. No, sorry.
It's interesting you're telling me about New York, and you're right. I think there is a level of technology which I can see coming in, and I think would be very, very useful in Amazon's pharmacy. Is the point of verification is if you've got a computer printing the label, then if you've got a computer that's verifying it, then I think the evidence behind it is a computer's verification is more accurate than a human verifying a prescription.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, can you imagine the amount of prescriptions a computer is going to be able to check versus a pharmacist? Like, it's going to be ridiculous.
Definitely. I mean, although you still need to double check how much is in the box, or the box is still the thing, and all this, that, the other.
Definitely.
But the actual data verification can definitely be done by a robot.
Yeah. All right. So now that we did talk about accuracy technicians and verifying the prescription, what is it going to be? Can you describe the process of when a patient gets a prescription and takes it to the pharmacy? What's that experience like?
That's if they get the prescription. So a patient, so how it was in my placement was, say, for an acute, patient could see the doctor. Doctor would say, and they finished it, prescription's written up, and they'd say, where do you want your prescription sent?
Mm-hmm.
And they'd say, pharmacy, say XYZ. The doctor would electronically send the prescription to that pharmacy.
Mm-hmm.
All the patient needs to do is walk across, just to say, hi, doctor sent a prescription across.
Mm-hmm.
And at which point I'll be like, okay, sure, what's your name, please? Look them up, confirm all the data, confirm, they are the patient and this, that, the other, and then continue to make things up and just go along like that. So from a patient perspective, when it works great.
Mm-hmm.
There have been hitches known that it can take longer than 20 minutes to half an hour for a prescription to come across. But when it works, I think, especially for repeat dispensing, it's so much easier because you don't have to go down to the surgery, pick up the prescription physically, then bring it back. Now all we need to do is just I can send requests electronically as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go click, 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 send the request electronically, and then I'd get the electronic prescription back.
Mm-hmm.
Say all things going well within 48 hours.
Gotcha.
So from a patient experience, it's great because they don't need to physically go to the doctor to put the repeat in.
Mm-hmm.
They can either do it electronically now, or they can ring the pharmacy up. Doctors don't take requests over the phone, so they'll tell all patients need to ring the pharmacy to request it. Although there are some changes in models across the country, I think some are stopping pharmacies from doing putting in the repeat requests. But the general idea is that the patients ring us, we put the repeat request in, goes off to the doctor all electronically, and then the doctor creates an electronic prescription, sends it back, and if the patient's getting the prescription delivered, then we'll just do the delivery service either that day or the next day.
Gotcha.
So from a patient perspective, it's a lot easier.
Yeah. So when they do take that prescription in and the prescription is ready, how do they pay for it? How much does it cost for them?
Okay, so assuming the patient pays for the prescription, it's £8.60 currently per item on a prescription. So so say you got a prescription and it's got clarithromycin. It's got, okay, maybe that's not the right one. That's a macrolide. Say it's got amlodipine. Say it's got omeprazole, and say it's got paracetamol.
Okay.
That would be, and they pay for their prescription. That would be 3 lots of charges, no matter how much quantity there is for each of them.
Okay.
If, for example, they have, Wolf, I think it's Wolf. Oh, this is a bad one. We might want to edit this scene. But say say they got so it's £8.60 per item. Okay.
And I just converted that. That's $11.06 in the US dollars. So that's how much you have to pay per prescription. no matter what it is. So it could be like something super expensive, like over here. That what comes to mind is like Pradaxa or Januvia, let's say. No matter what that cost is to that pharmacy, it's going to be to that patient. It's going to be $11.06.
Correct. And
Gotcha.
so how the money side of it works is the NHS has what they call a drug tariff, and they reimburse that drug tariff cost to the pharmacy.
Mhm.
I'm not going to get into the technicality because there's a lot of controversy regarding that.
Gotcha. Okay.
But they reimburse that cost to the pharmacy, and I think they pay the pharmacy a dispensing charge. I think that's all changed recently, just changed. And so, and then, yeah, you're right. And then that £11, I think 6 pence dollars,
Mhm.
that goes to the NHS. So the NHS is, in this case, subsidizing for the cost to the patient.
Gotcha. And
But if you got something cheap like amoxicillin,
yeah,
which then yes, the patient will still pay that £11, that that £8.60,
Mhm.
irrespective of the price. So yeah, it's the pricing is done to try and balance out the low to high. So
yeah.
that's why. So it's you either pay. So that's where that charge is introduced.
Okay. Are there, just trying to touch a little bit more on like the money side of things? Are there any ways that that pharmacies are trying to recover or I guess provide services to make other types of money? With the exception of soap and little things like that you can get inside the pharmacy that you can buy as a product. But are there any other services that pharmacists or pharmacies over there are starting to provide to try to bring in like extra income to the pharmacy?
Sure. So there are some things I've seen. So stuff I'm going to talk about is stuff I've seen or heard, which would be, I know that there's a pharmacy in central London. What's that called? John Bell and Croydon. It's the Queen's Pharmacy.
Cool.
If anyone is listening to this and is happened to be in London, check this pharmacy out. It is an absolutely
like the Queen goes
amazing pharmacy. It's huge. It's like, yeah, I couldn't believe what's in it. Like, it's absolutely amazing. They have everything.
Really?
It's that big, and they got private consulting rooms.
Oh,
so that is a way of doing it. Is that if you got the space, don't have one consulting room, have 2 or 3, and run private services within there. Make it a pharmacy a one-stop shop for additional healthcare services. You're not offering, we're not saying you should be offering only, one thing. As a pharmacy, we offer a service, a healthcare service, which aligns with other services. So an idea would be to have, like, I've heard of a pharmacy that has, a private doctor would come in, say, once a week or something in a private consulting room, and patients, if they want to see a private doctor, they can see it, and in that particular area, it works very well. That John Bell and Croydon, they do a lot of other private services. So they have, a makeup. They have a makeup one in one of them. Beauticians in it, 1 or 2. They have private. They have a dentist. I think they have an opticians. Wow. They offer all these sorts of, allied services.
Yeah.
So that is one way of doing it. The other way is things like travel clinics. So that's an expensive course, which but the returns on it, from what I understand, can be quite significant. And what I mean by travel services, malaria tablets or vaccinations, those sorts of things. So pharmacists are increasingly doing courses like this, and people don't want to have to travel into London or travel, far to get it. Whereas why should they, when, say, a pharmacy in this area will do it, which is only 2 towns away, sort of thing. It's a much more convenient way of going about it. So sorry.
No, I was going to say about vaccines. It's interesting because there's been a huge push in the last couple of years here in the States where pretty much almost every single retail community pharmacy will provide you almost any recommended vaccine that you need as an adult, including some travel vaccines. There's a couple.
And will they administer it?
Yeah, and we administer it. Yeah, and it recently, a couple years ago, I think it started with only pharmacists were administering it. at the at the pharmacy level. They recently started letting pharmacy students, like pharmacist interns, administer it also.
Okay.
And then there's one state, I forgot the name of the state. It's like some northern state. I think it's like Dakota or something. I don't know. They are actually allowing technicians to now provide vaccinations, under the oversight of a pharmacist. So
Okay,
that's
so
a big
that
push here.
is a very controversial. That last two are very controversial. And unfortunately, I can't comment on anything on that. But they're very controversial within the pharmacy world here.
Oh,
so,
really? Yeah. It's crazy.
There is,
I mean,
yeah. I won't go into it, but yeah, it's interesting that there is a state that has moved towards that model.
Yeah, and it's crazy, but I mean, it's one of the reasons I was asking about, what other things that pharmacies, over there are doing to try to recoup some of that money. But a vaccine is very profitable, and it's obviously, we push it because it's obviously safe and it protects the community from viruses and other types of diseases, but it's also very profitable, thing to provide. So that it's being pushed by a lot of different, pretty much every single retail community pharmacy you can walk into and get a vaccine if it's in stock within 15 minutes.
Oh wow! Okay, so the big thing that pharmacies have started doing here is flu vaccines.
Oh, okay, so they did start. Nice.
Yeah. So I think you can either get it free on the NHS if you're within a certain criteria.
Mm-hmm.
So if the NHS say it's cheaper to provide the vaccine for us to provide the vaccine to a patient than them getting ill, because it'll affect the complications of further chronic chronic conditions they have, and it'll make it'll exacerbate the condition and make things worse. So it costs more. So it's cheaper for us to administer the vaccine and say possibly preventing that happening.
Yeah.
Although there is a small charge. I think it's charged anything between, I've seen, £8 to £12 or something per flu vaccine.
Gotcha.
Being administered in a pharmacy.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's. I mean, everyone is being forced to adapt and try to survive, and I'm sure there's cost issues with pricing of drugs and things like that the UK has to deal with. But over here in the States, we're definitely dealing with problems with low reimbursement from insurance companies, and also PBMs and all kinds of things in terms of pharmacies losing money on the cost of medications. So
it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I can't comment again on too much from on the UK on that point because it's my employer.
Yeah, I understand.
My new employer.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think what's happening is the general fiscal environment in both the US and in the UK as well is making, in the UK especially, the economy as a whole is fiscally tight.
Yeah.
So that is presenting problems as a whole and pharmacy is one of those sectors that is having issues with money.
So what do you think the future of pharmacy in the UK will be like in the coming years?
2 words: digital and genomic.
Awesome.
Digital, because we're having health technology, doing amazing things, offering amazing services. So we have a branch of the NHS called NHS Digital, and they're creating and curating a library and working with tech entrepreneurs to integrate those amazing ideas, because a lot of these amazing ideas come from people who have a particular expertise in that area, and the NHS doesn't necessarily have that expertise. So these these amazing entrepreneurs are creating these new ideas and apps, and then the NHS is looking at ways to integrate them into the system, in the ecosystem, because at the end of the day, a patient will want it. It helps improve outcomes. That's the next thing they're looking at, is how can these apps improve outcomes, right? Let's do a study, because the NHS is a publicly funded body, therefore it's got to be able to defend it, and the only way you can defend something is if you have the evidence behind it. Gotcha. So so there's that. The other thing is the drive to be genomic. So from what I understand is by the NHS wants to try and introduce public genomic testing I think at least by within 2020, and I think that's the latest. I think it's the next couple of years they want to introduce it.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea behind it is that it can help. You can cure, not manage, but you can cure rare diseases. You can cure a lot of other illnesses because you can identify it down to the gene level identify where the issue is.
Yeah.
Repair the issue or solve that issue, and therefore the resulting condition won't present because it doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that is the genomic drive. And you actually had a conversation with someone very recent last week, I think it was, and I remember the gentleman saying, he reckons you could see 3D printing, but within the next 50 years, where patients take, they got a printer sitting at home and it prints them their medicine, a personalized medicine directly for the patient, and that's a combination of genomic and digital.
Yeah, that's so far in terms of like, it's like, hey, we're gonna cut on Amazon. Like, what? You're gonna cut on Amazon?
Yeah, Amazon will have nothing to deliver.
Yeah, exactly.
Because everyone's printing it themselves. The only thing Amazon will be delivering then will be all the raw materials you need.
It's so crazy. It's true though. It's gonna happen for sure. Like, I mean, there was already some report of some drug already. They already made a drug with 3D printing, and so it's only a matter of time really where that becomes mainstream, and you can just hit a button, or you get the formulation from your pharmacist, and then it gets sent to your printer, and then you got your medication.
Oh, yeah, the pharmacist or your doctor or your pharmacist gives you a token which has the not an ingredient, but it has the recipe.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And so you go back, you put the recipe in, and it makes it for you. Something, a level of there has to be obviously a level of control which will get worked out at that point. But I think it's a mind-boggling idea, isn't it? In the future,
it really is. Yep. So
also,
go ahead. No, finish on.
Also, another thing I can see is that digital tech being able to diagnose. If you look at someone's genetic blueprint, you can say, okay, they're predisposed to, I don't know, for example, hypertension, and this, that, the other.
Yeah.
But you're going to try. First of all, convincing a patient who's got hypertension, who's just been diagnosed with hypertension, to take a medicine is hard enough, because if you've got hypertension, you've just been diagnosed, you don't feel the effects. You just got it from a routine check normally.
Yes, exactly. It's a
so you're not going to take him. But then if you got a tool which can help in that diagnosis, so that they looks at the outcome, probability, what have they got, and this, that, the other, and then your tools of diagnosis, that is another area where I think we could be seeing in the next couple of years, and you can use your AI to do that, to crunch all that data.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's the future is going to be crazy. That's all I can say. But I'm excited.
Bright.
The future is bright. I'm excited about it. I mean, and we're all just going to be, forced to adapt and make sure that we have the skills and we're up to date on all the technologies to be able to utilize it, because our job is, I don't see it ever really going away for real. It's just going to adapt into a different form, and pharmacists just have to be okay with that.
Definitely. Oh, definitely. The era of pharmacy status quo, I think, is about to be the wall is about to be broken.
Yeah.
As if Amazon can. There are doubts. I have had a odd doubt of Amazon trying to break into the UK pharmacy market, especially.
Mm-hmm.
I know the US I think is a bit more different, because the patient demands are slightly more different. I think I can see them doing that. In the UK, I think it'd be a little bit more different. But the future is very bright, and it'll be interesting to see how things develop.
Yeah. So some of the listeners that we have are listeners that are either in pharmacy school, thinking about pharmacy, or just starting off their pharmacy career. And I wanted to see what's your best advice that you'd leave with a healthcare professional.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Okay, I want to say something. And this is more something that I learned in my fourth year, so my final year of university, is embrace creativity, embrace your creative side. If you're anything like me, up to when you go to pharmacy school, you're taught you're taught very science ideas. So you're taught you must think in a very rigid set of ways. You must think of these laws, and your creative side is usually drilled away.
Yeah,
it's picked away because you don't embrace. You never really embraced it at that point.
Yeah,
because you've always thought this way. to get new ideas, you got to be a dreamer. You got to be creative. The benefit of you studying pharmacy is that you've got the scientific aptitude, to take the dream to make it into a real idea. The hard part is to have that creativity and have that dream.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I would say, develop that creativity, whatever you takes to do. Start small, work your way big, and you'll find you'll come out with all these entrepreneurs we're seeing right now. We're only seeing probably their 1,000th, idea that's got through. We're not seeing the other bits before.
Yeah.
And that's, so don't be afraid to put in the hard work beforehand to get to where you are, because the gains always do. I don't think Mark Zuckerberg is going to look back and say, "Oh, when I was 20, I made that idea flop." No, he's probably, he's at home. I'm pretty sure he can sleep all right.
He's gonna be fine.
Yeah. Embrace that creativity and use your mindset that you've developed for helping patients to develop new ideas and new solutions to more complex problems.
Yeah. Interesting. And that's great advice. And I really hope that, people down here or over here, in the States will really do that and really embrace their creative side. And what's the best way, if anyone wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way they can find you?
You can meet me you can tweet me. Twitter is an amazing place. Twitter is where I met Richard.
Yes, I love Twitter now.
Twitter, there is a pharmacy community out there. There is a medicine community. There are so many communities. I think Twitter is I use Twitter more than any other social media.
Awesome.
So if you want to reach me on Twitter, I am ADK Agarwal, AGGARWAL. And just tweet me, and I'm happy to take any questions anyone might have.
Awesome. I'll definitely link that up in the podcast site. Aditya, thank you so much for taking this talk with me. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Richard. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and it's a pleasure.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I really hope you guys enjoyed that interview. I hope it was as insightful to you as it was to me. I had a blast learning about what it was like to be a pharmacist in the UK. Please leave me a comment on Instagram or on iTunes. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Any feedback is going to be greatly appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe. And until next time, see you over the counter.
Pharmacist.